have a very special friend with us today, and I'm delighted to have with us Steve Bell. He is the Executive Vice President of Willow Creek Association, which is kind of the education arm of Willow Creek Church. And we're going to talk about leadership today because it is very, very important. It's one of the things that really, if you go to seminary, you may not be taught how to be a good leader. I mean, you may be able to know how to study the Bible and do all of those things, but do you know how to lead? Or maybe you run a business or you run a ministry. Are you a good leader? Steve, what a delight to have you, friend.
Well, thank you, Perry. It is great to be with you today.
Hey, first of all, congratulations. I see where Willow Creek Church makes the best Christian workplace list.
We do. And the Willow Creek Association is working on making that same list.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, first of all, tell us about the seminar and the get-together, when and where, so before we get into the details of it.
Just to be real specific, actually the conference, the summit, emanates from Willow Creek Community Church here on the campus in South Barrington outside of Chicago. We'll have like 8,000 people here on the campus. It's been sold out since back in March, but we're also in 200 cities all across the United States in a simulcast. So we will be televising this live essentially all across North America, all across the U.S. on Thursday and Friday. That's August the 9th and the 10th, coming up in just a few weeks.
All right. Well, I want to encourage folks to be a part of this because this is outstanding. Well, leadership, Steve, is something that I guess you can learn leadership skills. I guess you could be gifted as a good leader. But why is this important? Why are we taking this subject on?
Well, we think when leaders get better, everybody wins. A church wins, an organization wins, a college wins, followers win. We just think that leadership is what kind of drives whatever it is that we as individuals feel called to do, whether it's ministry, whether it's in the business arena. We just have to keep getting better as a leader, and we think getting better is kind of synonymous with learning. So we need to continually be learners, and so we think that to set aside a couple of days every single year to just focus on sharpening our skills, sharpening and getting envisioned and just trying to get better as a leader, we think that is something that needs to be an annual kind of thing, and we all need that injection if we're going to be the leaders that God wants us to be to impact our world.
Well, you know, it's so interesting. Pastors, even people who are innovators and start their own businesses and everything, and they are the kind of like the beginning idea of a ministry or of a business or something like that. They're pretty good at that, but boy, they're lousy when it comes to leading people.
Well, you know, an awful lot of them are. And part of it is, especially in the ministry world, maybe somebody innovated, or maybe they just are a tremendous communicator, and before long they have more people than they know what to do with, and then, well, I never got trained in this. What do I do? And so it's a bit of a dilemma. So back in the mid-'90s is when Bill Hybels, who's the pastor of the church and the chairman of the Willow Creek Association, came to us and basically said, you know what, I've traveled the country. I just think an awful lot of leaders are struggling because they're not really getting training. You talk about to most leaders of an organization, do you think leadership development matters? Most will say absolutely. But then when you say, so what exactly do you do to help people get better? That's when folks start hemming and hawing. And so back in the mid-'90s is when Bill basically said, hey, I'll give a couple of days a year. You get as many people as you can to come, and I'll just try to get better as a leader. I'll share what I know. I'll bring in other experts, and let's see what God does. And it's kind of an idea that's gone wild, and it's amazing how this thing continues to grow from year to year.
All right, let me also say to our viewers and listeners, August 9th and 10th, Table Rock Fellowship will be hosting this simulcast, and you can make arrangements to go there to be a part of it, and that's coming up August 9th and 10th at Table Rock Fellowship. Pastor Tom Sabins and the staff over there are going to host that, so let me encourage that. The brochure is outstanding, absolutely wonderful. By the way, Steve, I see, and you can comment on this, a lot of the key people you have coming here, not all, but a few, are not necessarily believers. And so why did you mix them in?
Well, you know, that's by design because we have a conviction. First of all, I should say the summit emanates from a local church. And we believe all about the importance and significance of the local church because we think the local church is the hope of the world. And it's unapologetically Christian. That's our point of view. But when it comes to who we can learn from, I would say the summit's totally agnostic because we believe we can learn from all sorts of spheres. We think there's tremendous learning for godly people in the business arena, in the education arena, in all kinds of different communities. And I think the important thing is for God's people, for Christians, to humble themselves and say, I can learn from someone who maybe doesn't have the same point of view faith-wise, but that doesn't mean we compromise our faith. We're just saying, what are those nuggets? What are those learnings that we can get from somebody else who's an expert at what they do? And so we are totally unbiased when it comes to who can we learn from across ethnicities, across people groups, across racial groups, across religious lines, across gender divides, across socioeconomic issues. We just think there's folks we can learn from across the board. And the summit is a wonderful, very intentional blend of Christian leaders, church leaders learning from people outside the church, but then a lot of business leaders, community leaders, college leaders, education, whatever, learning from some church leaders. So we think it goes both ways, and that level of humility, when there's a certain amount of disequilibrium, that's when the best learning happens, as long as we have a humble, learning, wanting to know more attitude. And it's just been a wonderfully received experience for folks.
Well, let me encourage folks, again, August 9th and 10th. Steve, what about the leader that has to do it all? I mean, the guy that has to be in charge of everything. What do you say to that person?
Well, I think that person is going to burn out. I don't think that is a sustainable model because leaders, and let's face it, any great organization, there might be a key leader. But when you dig deep and look under the hood, you can see that there are numbers of leaders in that situation who understand what they're supposed to do, know the goals, and all of them are kind of linking arms and working together, which is one of the reasons, Perry, that we feel strongly, and this is catching on more and more, that the summit is an experience for teams to experience together. It's not somebody just come by yourself, get better as a leader, keep it all secret, and then expound your wisdom later. Let everybody come. Let there be a level of mutual accountability, mutual inspiration, because let's just be honest, no one person can do it all.
Yeah.
We need teams. We need other people working alongside with us.
Have you noticed a change in leadership style generationally?
I think so. In fact, it's very interesting that you asked that question. Increasingly, there is more of a collection of people who are on a team. There seems to be more and more team leadership happening now, as opposed to kind of that dictatorial, dictatorial leadership where it comes from the top down. More and more, there's mutuality. There's from the bottom up. There's a grassroots thing happening, especially with our more causal younger folks in society today. But it's interesting because one of our talks this year from a key pastor, Craig Rochelle, is going to be addressing that issue, talking about the strongest link and how do you, and that's his topic, but the basic issue is going to be, how do you pass the leadership responsibilities from one generation to the next, and how do you embrace folks, give them opportunity to run, yet learn from the older? How does that all work? Because I think increasingly that's a growing issue in a lot of churches today. How do you bring along that younger generation? And I think it's true in the business arena as well, with more and more innovation happening. How do you keep the people with the history and the wisdom and the track record, and yet make sure you keep the innovations coming? How does that all work together? That's going to be a topic we'll address this year, along with numbers of other ones.
Well, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that the younger generation likes to manage through team effort and collaboration at a team level, versus the previous generation, which probably would be more top-down management. The other thing I'm learning is that nobody wants my job. I got younger staff, and nobody wants my job. So, they like doing what they do, which is fine. So I'm trying to learn how to lead from behind.
Yeah, I think that's great, Perry. And I think you said a key word there. I want to just highlight it. Collaboration. I
Yeah.
think it is a key word today, and we all need to get better at that.
Wow. What can a pastor learn from this?
Well, I think a pastor is going to be challenged just on so many levels. They're going to be challenged in terms of, like, for example, one of the topics we're having William Ury from Harvard Business School, who wrote the book Getting to Yes, the whole skill of negotiating conflict. I think that's something that every pastor addresses, and I'm not sure they had too many classes on that in seminary. How do you negotiate conflict? How do you get people on the same page? How do you bring opposing parties together to come to solution? That's a huge topic. Bill Hybels is going to talk about the opening session, the privilege of leadership. And sometimes we lose the perspective and just think it's a duty, but there's and it is, but there's an incredible privilege to have the influence and so forth. Condoleezza Rice, who, when you think about her, she's been at the center of processing decisions that have had, around world-changing events over the last decade. And she's going to be there talking about no higher honor, talking about some of the tough calls of running, some of the biggest, largest institutions that have had worldwide influence that there are. Jim Collins' brand new book, Great by Choice. I tell you, every pastor should read this new book, Great by Choice. It is phenomenal. Of course, he's one of the leading business thinkers out there, but so much of what he comes up with is applicable to local church leadership. Mark Kielberg is going to talk about being against apathy. And he and his brother, when they were teenagers, started what is now the largest youth organization to have influence around the world. And these were teenagers who started it. Like, how do we get people to do that? How do we release folks to follow their dream, follow their hearts? We're going to talk about the issue of women around the world with Pulitzer Prize winner Sheryl Wu Dunn. Pranitha Timothy's coming from International Justice Mission. She leads, this is a young mom who has led over 50 missions, releasing women from the bondage of the sex slave, and an incredible story. It's going to inspire people. Patrick Lencioni is going to talk about culture. Every church, every business has a culture. How do we make it better? Yeah. How do we deal with behavior in the workplace? On and on. I can keep going, but there's going to be so many takeaways. I think people don't want to miss this.
Well, let me encourage our listeners and viewers. Table Rock Fellowship is going to be hosting this there, and Pastor Tom and the crew. So let me encourage you to sign up for it and be a part of it. Coming up August 9th and 10th, it's going to be one of the things you don't want to miss. This is going to be part of the telecast and the teleconferencing right out of Willow Creek. Steve, this is outstanding, and I just want to say to you and your entire team, thank you for putting this on. I think this is absolutely incredible because God has called us to lead. That's at the bottom line. He's called us to do that. So, hey, thanks. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to be with you folks today. Hope people take advantage of it.